I'm very curious, especially like you both were in Acquisitions Incorporated. You have been in it multiple times. You recently being a Warforged in it. What is behind? Acquisitions Incorporated was one of the original shows to have like a theater of people watching D&D get played. We've come around to that again because a lot of stuff was being shot in studios and settings like that. Why do you think it's suddenly in stadiums and theaters again? With all these different shows, with Dimension 20, with Critical Role, with 20-Sided Tavern. What's with the resurgence, do you think?
I feel like it's the same reason people like concerts, right? Where there's like, you want to kind of extend that branch from, instead of being alone in your room or on the treadmill or on your way to work, where you're kind of listening and viewing these things in a solitary way, to kind of enjoy it with someone else. Like, it's always fun to be around people who are into the same thing you are, and you're in it together. And I think especially with something narratively, it's that movie-going experience. When you watch a horror movie at home, it's scary and it's terrifying. But watching a horror movie in a theater, it's fun because you're like, oh, we're all scared together.
Yeah, that magic of when you hear someone in the audience of a horror movie scream. I mean, this happened to me recently seeing the movie Weapons.
Yes.
And
I think, see that, yeah.
And I think, with Ack Inc. and other live shows, there is that magic, that energy that the audience shares and then also feeds to the performers, who then feed it back to them, which, as fun as recorded shows can be, there's nothing quite like that magic of in-person performance.
Yeah, I mean, that's something you feel proud of, and you chase as a dungeon master. This, making a player at the table happy. And you often you are chasing this, like when you're on Dimension 20, a show like that. It's cracking up your other castmates. They're kind of the audience. What is that difference between talking to a live audience and kind of performing for them and performing for your friends, like trying to make Brennan crack and people like that?
Oh yeah, I feel like you basically read my mind, because the next thing I was going to say is that there is the element of interactivity with the audience, where like, if we're just at a table doing it privately, we're kind of feeding off of each other. I'm like, okay, you seemed interested about that, so I'm gonna bring that back. When you have this live audience and they laugh really hard at this joke or seem very connected to this beat, then at least my improv brain is like, okay, I'm gonna rest that for a bit, and then I'm gonna bring that back later because everyone dug it so much. And I think, even with last night, the beat of, Dave, getting his member, and just kind of the arc, that, like, to me, I was like, as an improv nerd, I was like, perfect. Because I didn't even, I was just kind of more interested in like, okay, what is Dave's relation to this reality warp? Because Dave being a newer kind of player here, he is like the new kid trying to see what this means for him and where he fits in. So I was kind of focused on that. So by the time, Mike's talking about this 3D printer, it's not hitting me until he makes it, and I just bust up laughing, because I'm like, yeah, of course, this is the arc kind of closing itself up right before something massive happens, which is very funny too.
Yeah, and when DMing Ack Inc., I often think of the audience as the other player at the table. And so for me, it is very similar to playing at home. It's just we have this additional special player that is a conglomeration of hundreds of people. And it's so fun including them at the table. And I think even as players, it feels like they are the other player at the table. And we get to hear from them sometimes. And it's so fun to make sure that they, just like all the other players at the table, are having a great time.
Yes, I think that's the perfect analogy right there. Yeah.
So you're a professional comedian.
Yes.
And you do improv on
Yes.
top of all of this. WorldAnvil.com has some of the best tools you can find, whether you're building a brand new world or developing a character. There are over 106 supported systems, including D&D or your own personal system. World Anvil provides you solutions that really help any dungeon master, any game master to plan, to play, to present their adventures and their campaigns. They have an amazing campaign manager, digital storyteller, their own game master screen. All of this really helps up your game when you are a dungeon master or a game master. These tools really can help you. And for players, developing your character, backstory, journals, basically everything that a player is looking for, both within a character sheet and beyond, you can find on worldanvil.com. And even if you're just a writer who wants to flesh out your story, create all kinds of assets that help you develop the scope of your vision, worldanvil.com helps you do that. And when you go to worldanvil.com and you use the code TODD, you get 51% off your yearly worldanvil.com subscription. You can click on the link in this video description. Now back to the interview. Do you have some hard-earned like philosophies, ideas like for improv, whether they're relevant to like D&D or any role-playing game?
Oh yeah, I think especially with D&D, just that yes-anding. And I think that, when you just start, improv, yes and we do a lot of exercises where like someone presents you an idea and you say yes and you add to it. And so sometimes early on people think yes-anding means like always agreeing, but sometimes a no or a denial isn't necessarily a denial of the idea. It's like building out the world, like everyone doesn't have to be all in on Dave getting a new member because someone being against it actually proves that it can happen. And so it's like and that person's like, with the repercussions of what this might mean, I don't want to see it. And you kind of flesh out the world and it seems more real because it's not always agreement, it's conflict too, and then it makes it more rich. So I'm always like yes-anding to the truest nature, where it's like yes and, but when you are yes-anding, think about your character and what is true for your character, and the yes and is the reality of it and not as actually the agreement of whatever the proposed idea is.
And for you?
Yeah, I would say yes. Yeah, and so often it really does come down to the and, that what you were talking about of what you then add to it.
Yes.
Because what you then add to it will often take the yes and transform it into something else entirely. And so one of the things I love about the sort of parade of yes ands that are at the heart of any improv performance is when you get to the end of it, usually none of us as performers foresaw where we were headed with all of it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're really giving yourself to being in the moment, picking up what the other performers are putting down, and then just really giving yourself to the uncertainty to see where it's all going to end up. And that's true for not only the players at the table, it's also true for the dungeon master, who is, whether it was Chris like last night or when I'm doing it, we too are there just waiting to see where it's all going to end up. And I think that's when it really feels the most powerful. It feels the most magical when everyone at the table, DM included, had no idea how it was going to play out. In the end, once all the pieces were on the table, once everyone's yes and was a part of the brew that was cooking, throughout the night, and then you get to the end and it's like it's a surprise for all of us.
What's a win for you both? Like for you, like what's a win when you are, whether it's doing stand-up or you're doing improv with your friends or you're playing in a D&D game? Do you dungeon master as well?
Yes, I do.
What's the win for you? Because I know I have these moments when I've been running a campaign and maybe this deep dark moment, and it often has nothing to do with me. I talked to Chris Perkins about the same thing, who's totally not to my left, about like when people go on tangents and you're not involved in any way.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the best moment as a dungeon master.
Oh yeah, I feel like, whenever I'm like DMing, The win for me is, look, we all have our friends, and they're all neurodivergent and have ADHD, and we're all in la la land sometimes. But that moment you see them sit in that gamer mode, like you say a thing that gets everyone locked in, where they're like, oh, it's getting real. Like, that is my favorite. Like, that to me, that's like the fish reel, where it's like, I got you in. And I think as a player, whenever I approach an idea in a way that excites the DM, that was a win. If we're referencing D20, like having, Wendell talk to Vic in the reflection, everyone's always like, that was a cool moment. And really, that was, speaking of the things we were saying before, yes, and in the reality, I was like, the character that Wendell is, he's not someone who can make his own decisions. He's not at that place. He hasn't found that growth. That's the arc I want him to have. So I was like, if this is a mystical world where we can get sucked into a VHS tape, this is a world where, like, the characters within this story still probably has, some kind of autonomy, so he can talk to Wendell. And I did that moment, and seeing Brendan, like, light up and was like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. We should all be doing that. I was like, yeah. And, I think for live comedy, it's pretty simple, just getting that laugh. And I think for me now, it's like taking them on an idea that might be a little esoteric, that people are just kind of like, they don't know where it's going. They might be a little like uncomfortable. They might be a little like, what are you trying to say? And then when the punchline comes and then it surprises them, always feels like a win, because you're, the moment you like stop the like laughter and fun to like go into this like deep setup is always a risk, because you've basically put out the fire to try and light it again. And sometimes it doesn't light and it doesn't feel good. It does not feel good. You're like, okay, yep, that didn't hit.
What's a win for you as a player or a dungeon master?
So it's very similar for me, whether I'm playing or DMing. What I love to do is have this mix where there's a laugh that either, I'm delivering or I help set up. And then at the same time, over the course of the play, work in a point where instead it's a moment of heart. I love that moment where, people are laughing and laughing and laughing, and then suddenly, oh, I feel that. Because I find so often the laughs and the scary parts are so much more meaningful, where there's that moment that's where everything suddenly slows down and you're like, ooh, I'm getting that right here. Where suddenly you remember, like, even these ridiculous characters, they've got hearts, they have things they care about, they have dreams, and I love that alchemy. And when I can see that the audience and the players are feeling that, that to me that's the win. An example of exactly what I'm talking about, of that mix of laughter, and then suddenly, oh my God, am I actually crying? A great example of that is when we did the Inc. video series. There was the episode where Omen and Jim had this vision of another world in which they were a couple, and Certainty and Bode were actually their children, and players were crying at the table.
Oh, wow.
Because of just how much they felt like, in some ways, this was actually the reality that is closest to their hearts. And there had been a lot of, nonsense, and I'm sure dick jokes leading up to it. And then suddenly, again, it's like time slows down, and it's like, oh, but it's this moment. This is what this is really about. This is what these characters really care about and dream about, even if they're not conscious of it. Like, suddenly it just tugs at the heart. But in terms of a recent win, I will say last night, for me, it was actually when I first came on stage, I hip locked with my pistol out, and I was feeling it.
Yes, you were serving. It was great. I was like, hell yeah, that's good.
For you, is there a recent moment?
Oh man. If I think back to like because now you got me in my head where I'm like, oh, that's the ticking time bomb that is Dave is gonna have to have that moment soon where it all connects as to like how he feels with everyone, where he stands, and what he's all about. So I think PAX Unplugged will see that, but I think before that, I think there was I go all the way back to Escape from the Bloodkeep and kind of, having this. I was playing this character Marcus St. Vincent, which was this like sky pirate who, was all about the money. He's like, I gotta get this money. And there's just a moment after this big battle where he's watching his skyship explode and all his like crew members who like for the most part have just been like comedic relief all up into that stories, but like seeing them, spoilers, fall to their untimely end, and how that, and me in Marcus character player mode having the process where it's like, like I was bossing them around and I was being goofy with them, but like at the end of the day, this was my family. This was the family that, I've been searching for, and now they're gone.
Mm-hmm. How do you both approach world building and character building without because sometimes people will write backstories that are so long that is kind of a constraint on the character itself, because characters evolve as you play them or as the roles happen. Like I tried to make this super stealthy assassin character, and he went into a completely different direction because he's never made a stealth role, I think, in the career of that character. How loose do you keep characters? How much do you like to diverge from your own personalities? Because like Dungeon Masters, I talked to Chris Perkins about this. I've talked to Matt Mercer about this. It's either very intelligent characters or really not. To give you a little bit of a processing break. How do you approach character and even world building?
Yeah, I think I start with their wants and needs, and work from there, where it's like, okay, what does this character want, and what is their approach to doing it? Because I think that is, even when I'm just writing narratively, I think that is kind of one of the most important things, where I always say the best villain is someone who you can agree with their motives, just not the way that they're going about getting it. I think in recent memory, like Killmonger in Black Panther, you're like, oh, you see why he's angry. You can see what he's trying to do. You can see his vision, but the way he's trying to do it is completely villainous. And I think that's why we're not so different, you and I, rings so hard, because it is true. Like, heroes and villains aren't different. It's just the process that they go through to go about gaining their means. So I start with that, and then I start with why they want it, how they want to go about it, and then I get to okay, now are they dumb, or is it? And sometimes that kind of I like letting that be found at the table, because sometimes you're like, the other players at the table are kind of leaning on you in a way, or just through a couple of good dice rolls, because it's kind of funny, right, when you're like, this guy's an idiot, this guy doesn't know anything, and then you're just acing all of these history, insight, and all that. You're like, well, I guess. So that's why I kind of do let that session 0 or session 1 kind of determine how smart or dumb my characters are, but I am open to both, and I let the dice kind of help me tell that story.
Yeah, it's so important to me to leave that door open for the dice to help us figure things out, the other players to help us find our way. And so whether I'm DMing or playing, I try to keep sort of how much I prepare in advance about my player character or a non-player character, keep it as minimal as possible. I want to make sure I know, what do they want? What is their motivation in the adventure or the scene that they're going to be in, and try to keep myself from giving into the temptation to write pages and pages of backstory, which can often turn into shackles, where suddenly you feel like, well, I have to be true to this thing I wrote, rather than letting the dynamic storytelling help determine who this person is. Because in many ways, I often feel that it's somewhat like life itself, where who we are in this moment is really what matters. And sure, we all have a long backstory, and it led us to this moment.
Yeah.
But the moment we're all experiencing right now, it's this one. And I think it's really important, as whether you're the game master or a player, to remember that, and to remember that there is also this chaos gremlin at every table in the form of dice. And whatever decision that you have made, that gremlin is almost assuredly going to sabotage it. Because exactly this thing of you decide, my character's a genius, and then you whiff every roll that is based on, what that character may or may not know. And it's like, well, how much of a genius are they really? Are they maybe a little delusional in how clever they think they are? Because I'm, in reality, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, not seeing it at all. Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting point that you bring up, because you have been playing Vive for quite a long time. I've been playing a character since I was 8, but I never put people through having to hear the backstory of that character, because it's about the session that you're currently in. It's great that you know all that shit, and that is kind of informing the weird decisions, but no one needs to know. No one needs a monologue about that.
Yeah.
They need to see the action of that. Otherwise, you're uninviting people to that story or that session.
Yeah.
And even when fleshing out the deep backstory, I always try to leave gaps, so that there's a chance later in play to fill in those gaps in ways that are useful to the current story. Because if you fill every corner of a character's backstory before play has even started, you have no room to wiggle around in when maybe something will pop up later and you decide, wait, I actually want my character, maybe this person who just showed up is my cousin, but if I had just done a backstory where my family tree is so detailed, there's no room for the long lost cousin to show up. It's like I think that's a funny way to maybe put it as a metaphor, is leave room in your backstory for the long lost cousin or the long lost sibling. Don't fill everything out so much that you can't be surprised about your own character. Because I love, whether I'm DMing or playing, I love leaving space open to be surprised.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's always the treat, because, when you see it, it adds a little more pizzazz and excitement, right? Where if you're this is you map out every detail, when it's getting kind of brought in and woven in, you kind of get to have the jump on it in a way that doesn't allow you to react a little more naturally than you would. And so it was very funny to go back to Escape from the Bloodkeep. Marcus had this brother that he felt cheated him out of his seat of the throne, and it didn't go over the details of how or why he felt it. So then Brendan was able to come in, and I didn't know how my brother felt about me, and so he approached it from this way where my brother was like, hey man, come back home, and so that changed everything in such a fun way, because before it's I'm saying that I've been cast out and banished, and then you find out that it's oh no, my character is just so dramatic over not having a seat at the throne that he wasn't actually banished. It was and he could go home. He just is so angry about things.
Yeah.
What is there a particular character that either of you tend to gravitate towards? I'm always interested in the psychology, and I always wonder if I'm kind of a shit performer, because I do love characters who are their own the worst enemy. I'm addicted to it. I love to see characters who think they're smarter than they are and fail, who are kind of villains but kind of goofy in the fact that they know their plans. I guess it's almost that Saturday morning cartoon of everything. The villains always think they're going to win, and at the end of the day, those crazy kids foil them. I think that's the whole basis of Loki. Is he's always in his own way. What for you do you find is maybe a break from yourself?
Oh man, I think it's someone who is just a perspective change away from being the hero. Someone who they haven't got it all figured out. They can't realize, and they think it's all these exterior reasons, and really it's something within them that they have to like realize or actualize. I think that that's always fun, because that just immediately lends myself to being a character that needs his party, doesn't know why, but he needs them to really kind of lock in.
And I DM most of the time.
Yeah.
So often I'm portraying a whole range of different types of characters. But when I get those precious opportunities to be a player, I find that I tend to gravitate to really one of two broad archetypes, but they're similar to each other in a way, and I'll explain. One of those archetypes is the newbie just starting out who has a ton of enthusiasm and hope, but who also is probably going to fall on their face a lot, and grow through that. And I find I often like that sense of someone just brimming with hope and possibility, but who's probably it's going to be a shit show. But then the other type of character I tend to play is a really old person, and Vi is an example of this, who has had a long life, who is very accomplished, but realizes late in their life they still have a ton to learn. And so I feel like these two characters are actually two sides of the same coin. It's the person like starting out in their life, or the person at the end of their life, but who both realize there's still so much I've got to learn. And I love embodying that sort of that sense of wonder, that sense of exploration, that realization that my character doesn't know everything, and either that's because they're just starting out, or they had some, in the school of hard knocks, they've had to realize after many years they weren't, as hot shit as they thought they were.
Yeah.
And so I like that journey of discovery in a character.
Yeah, I love that.
What for you do you think, as a dungeon master, do you find to be the stories that you gravitate towards? Like, is there a genre? Is there a mood that you're always find yourself daydreaming the most about?
Man, I love just stories about, trying to figure out what's like a baseline level of trying to fix a problem that ends up being just one thread that turns into like a worldwide, universe-wide problem. Just the idea of because it just feels, just a lot of times I think we in general think like, oh, if we just need to fix this thing, and lots of times the problem is systemic and larger than life, and you find out why many people have veered from trying to fix that problem because it seems so daunting. And I think it's fun as a DM to do that for the players, because especially when you get those like players who are like, I'm finding out all these things on like like a local level, trying to write notes, and it's like, oh, you're writing notes that aren't even going to matter in about 10 sessions because this is going to level up, this is going to be bigger, this you're going to meet a whole new bigger, badder problem that has actually been pulling the strings, and that is just fun to me.
Yeah. I find that whether I am building a campaign that is epic high fantasy, or really messed up horror, or sort of bureaucratic comedy like Acquisitions Incorporated.
Yeah.
No matter which of those genres or others that I'm exploring, I tend to think of any campaign I build as being character driven, not only by the player characters, but by key non-player characters and villains. So I think of all of my campaign planning through usually the lens of who is the villain or antihero, what do they want, what are they doing, and how are their motivations colliding with the player characters. And so for me, it really is always about characters. Sometimes those critical NPCs and villains don't even appear on stage for a while, but I'm always thinking in terms of what is it they're after? And I find that really focuses my preparation as a DM, that focuses my storytelling, because it's always, for me, not about sort of an abstract situation, but instead, what does this person or these group of people want? And that also can help create a sense of pressure, because they are doing things on their own. And that often helps create the sense that the world is alive, because I'm always thinking about, like, they're up to something, whatever the player characters are up to, and their paths might cross, and then you end up, having some really great conflict. But if the player characters don't sort of lock in and really deal with what the villains are doing, well, there's going to be a huge mess on their hands.
Yeah.
What is one of the biggest misperceptions that you both have dealt with about anything you do? Whether it's like stand-up comedy or dungeon mastering or playing, being a player character or improv. Is there something that people just kind of always seem to misunderstand about it?
I always find it flattering.
I mean, you make $1 million per show, right?
No.
Dungeon mastering, yeah, totally.
No. I always find it so flattering how often people think our shows are scripted somehow, or we've planned the beats out together in advance.
Yeah. That'd be way more stressful, by the way.
and so I think a big misperception is just people not realizing it is really improv.
Yeah.
We are really rolling with this in the moment, and that again is, for me, a huge part of the magic of it. And but still, it's hilarious, despite years of talking about, we're, other than the DM providing some structure,
yeah,
it's just improv. Still, there will be people who are like, "Oh my God, it was so good, it was so funny. You must have planned it in advance."
Yeah.
Like, no, we were just making shit up.
Yeah. Sometimes the dice really does roll in our favor or roll poorly that many times, like last night. Goodness gracious. Yeah, I guess. I think something along the lines with that. I feel like I think that people think that like I come in pre-locked and loaded with the types of jokes or the jokes I go. I'm like always going, shooting from the hip off of vibes. Like for me, it's never like, okay, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna be doing like dick jokes this time because that's my agenda.
That's clearly your agenda the last two games.
Yeah. And I was like, nah, dog. Like that's it. It came up and it just felt like naturally the funny thing in that moment. So I think that kind of falls back into the same thing where it's like, yeah, it is just all on the spot, shooting from the hip. Nothing else is pre-planned. Not for me.
Yeah. And so while we're not doing that initial pre-planning, what we are doing is coming in with, knowledge of who our character is, ready to bring that character to whatever the moment is, and then staying on our toes moment by moment, being fully present, ready to not only have a good time playing, but also weave a story together.
Is there something that you're obsessed with that you think no one cares about? It's kind of interesting. I just had an interview with Jennifer English and Ben Starr, and him and I talked about chromatic orb in the 2024 Player's Handbook for about 15 minutes because of how much we like it. Because it's so, if you upcast it, you're going to automatically get two rolls that match each other, like 2 2s or 2 3s, and we just went on and on about it, how improved it was. Do you have something?
I'm so glad you like it.
Do you have something that's kind of weird like that? Like I have an obsession with breaking the meta of D&D. Like I have a character who's been through every edition, so he's kind of broken inside because he remembers when a hard rain would kill people.
Yeah.
And you only had 2 hit points. Is there something about that, like something you have that you think no one would care about, that is your obsession?
Yeah, I don't think I have an obsession like that. Yeah. What about you?
No,
So it's just me. Okay, good. Cool.
I have a lot of sort of historical and folkloric and occult interests slash obsessions that I work into every campaign I've ever done. But they're often so esoteric that most people never notice, or if they do, it might be years later of like, oh, there was this weird thing that kept popping up.
But it's for you. That's what's great about it.
I enjoy it. It's almost like I think of, we're making like this beautiful rug, and there's this particular thread I sew in every time, and it's just for me.
Yeah.
I'm okay with if no one notices.
Yeah.
Do you have in jokes like that for yourself, or the secret passions that you weave into?
I will try to do like I love. I mean, you saw this last night, but if there's a chance to make a stupid acronym joke, I will do it every time, and I'll never point out that it's an acronym. I'll never point out the spelling. So I think yesterday it was just entrench sustenance until submerged with the water to wine machine. And and Anna was like, Jesus.
Yes. Well, and oh my God, I wanted to run over and hug you because that was such an amazing example of yes-anding, because I had set up, telling Omen, oh, it's a water into wine machine, which Chris did not say as the DM.
Yeah.
And I, in my head, I'm thinking of, the miracle at the wedding in one of the Gospels.
Yeah.
But I was not going to point that out. And so I love that you then picked that up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love it. The Catholic school will do that to you. You'll see it. Cathedrals that are all around us or something like that. Yeah.
And that was actually a great example of one of those sort of esoteric things that I, even as a player, put out there just for my own amusement. And so then the fact that you picked up on it, I was like, oh, God bless.
Honestly, for both of you, because there's been an element that like having to do with like, fame's a very strong word, but when you go to a convention like this, you will get stopped. Is that a strange experience sometimes? Because like I'm in my own head all the time, and I don't believe anyone sees anything I've ever done. That's literally my mental state all the time.
Yeah.
And so if someone says hi to me, I'm just like, that's weird. How did that possibly happen? Do you ever run into that a little bit? Like where you're just like, it's weird that people who you don't know you? Like, do you feel like you've hit like a measure of success, or like how do you deal with that?
It's not like a weirdness. It is like an excitement and humility, because I recently, especially after like I started hosting, I'm actually now, when I come to a convention, I get to experience life as Timothy Chalamet. It's like, oh, this, and everyone's like, oh, do you ever feel annoyed? I was like, look, there's two things that have happened to me that are the reason this will never be annoying. The first one is that in 8th grade, I threw a birthday party that only one person came to. Oh. And the second thing is in my when I was doing comedy, I wanted to do this show that I was really excited about. I thought it was really cool. And it was called Afro Funk. I hit my buddy up to do like this hand-drawn art. And he was like a Marvel artist. It looked really cool. It had this like Afrofuturist vibe. I had like called in favors for friends to do the show and come and do it. And there was 2 people in the audience. There were more people on the show than there were that were in the audience. And so because of that, like people coming up and being like, hey, I love this thing you do, I will always be appreciative of it, because I remember when I would have begged for more than 2 people to have seen my work. So yeah, no, for me it's like it isn't weird. It is. It's like wild. Like it was like, oh wow, you like the goofy, like nerdy stuff that I do. Cool, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel the same way. It's always humbling. I appreciate so much that they appreciate the work that I've done, and I always see it as an opportunity to try to make someone else's day brighter if I can, because I know that them, interacting with us is often, especially if they're as like introverted as I am, it's often requiring some bravery to say hi, because I know when I see someone maybe whose work I admire, I'm shy about saying hi to them. So I also always really admire their boldness in saying hi and saying that they appreciate what we do. And so I always want to meet that with a warmth and try to convey how much I appreciate that they're taking the time to express their appreciation.
You both have been interviewed so many times, I can't imagine. Like, just doing junkets or press events and stuff like that. Do you have the worst question that you've ever been asked? Or that something that led absolutely nowhere? And or, is there something that you wish someone had asked?
I feel like as far as wishing someone had asked, I feel like I've answered enough questions to where people have covered it. As far as I don't necessarily think it's the worst, but it is like always interesting when people are like, what do you like, more, stand up or improv, or what do you like, if you had to choose? And I get the idea of it. But for me, it's like they all of it goes hand in hand. I don't feel like I have to choose from any of the things, because it's like the improv helps me with crowd work and being loose on stage with stand-up. Stand-up helps my joke brain come up with funny joke on the spot. Improv and stand-up speeds up both things, and they work for TTRPG actual play stuff. So for me, it's like they all kind of exist in separate kind of nodes and can exist at the same time. And so there's no favorite, because I feel like if I did only one, then I would be weaker in the aspect, in many aspects in that one.
Yeah, I can't think of any particular question that
It would have been coming from me.
No, I partly because I just don't log stuff like that in my memory. I think the only times where I've been struck in an interview over the years of not by a particular question, but sometimes by the mood. Once in a while there'll be someone where it's like, all right, I'm going to try to, with this question, get one on Jeremy or the person. And I'm always just like, hey, I'm here for you. Let's just have a conversation. And so for me, it's never a particular question, but just that when sometimes there's that weird dynamic of hey, let's come together. Let's just shoot the shit together.
Yeah.
And we'll have fun. I mean, that's why I've enjoyed for so many years talking with you, because we just talk.
This is my final question, but I mean, no one's getting rich. Well, someone's getting rich, probably. I don't know it's anyone here, but what keeps you so passionate and excited about the things that you do, whether it's improv and comedy or dungeon mastering or being a player and doing events like this? This is something you have to love.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This was it's because it's fun. I think when I first started doing this, when I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop trying to do this college track and I'm gonna put it all in comedy and all in stuff, I was like, if it isn't fun, I have to stop doing it. That's the rule. The only rule I kind of set for myself is if it isn't fun, I have to stop doing it. Because if it's something that isn't fun, I could have stayed working for the LA County Register Recorder, selling birth, death, and marriage certificates until I started making six figures, kind of making my way up the government track. So if I'm leaving that behind, which is a surefire way that would keep me stable and make money, to something that's fulfilling and fun, then I have to make sure that everything I do now is fun, or I have to stop doing it.
Yeah, for me, I'm driven by, is it fun for me? Because I know if I'm enjoying it consistently, it means other people are going to enjoy it. And also I'm just driven by how powerful I find storytelling. Whether it's through a story I'm actually telling, or it's through the story ingredients that I'm providing in an RPG book. To me, there are few things in culture as powerful as the stories we tell each other. And I just love being a part of that alchemy and getting to sometimes, again, tell a story, but often be sort of the midwife to stories other people are then going to go on and tell. And that to me is an amazing privilege. And I've been doing this for many years and I'm still not tired of it.
Ify, Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great convention. You both do such fabulous work, and it's great to see you both getting to role play out there on stage.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah.
If you want to support more video content like this, go ahead and like, subscribe, leave a comment on the YouTube channel below, and also make sure to check out our Patreon page. That helps support future video content like this, and we make playtest materials for things like D&D and Daggerheart as well. Thank you so much for watching.